I wasn't supposed to be home that early. The original plan had me flying in late Sunday night, touchdown around 9, maybe home by 10. But the final meeting in Chicago wrapped sooner than expected, and I caught an earlier flight out of O'Hare. No delays, no turbulence, just quiet skies and a nearly empty plane. Felt like the universe was nudging me home. I didn't text Marianne. I wanted it to be a small surprise, nothing dramatic. Just me, walking through the door a few hours ahead of schedule, coffee and breakfast in hand. Maybe even catching her mid-lazy morning stretch or curled up watching reruns in her robe. That was the picture I had in my head. But that's not what I walked into. The front door creaked slightly as I stepped inside. The place was quiet, unnaturally so. No music, no TV murmuring in the background, no sound of a shower running. Just silence, broken only by the hum of the fridge and the ticking of the hallway clock. I set my bag down by the coat rack, kicked off my shoes, and padded down the hall toward the bedroom. The door was half open. That's when I saw it. A phone charger, black cord worn down, frayed at the edge, plugged into the wall beside my side of the bed. I stopped walking. I knew every charger we owned. That wasn't one of them. Beside it, resting on the nightstand, partially obscured by a half-full glass of water, sat an opened box of condoms. Not new, opened. The flap curled upward. I could see the corner of a foil wrapper sticking out. I didn't move for a full 30 seconds. My body felt weirdly distant, like I was observing someone else's life through a pane of glass. My mind went blank, then loud, then blank again. This wasn't a dropped earring. It wasn't a jacket left behind by a friend. It was two very deliberate objects, personal and asterisk mate, left in casual view. I took a slow breath. My hands were steady, but my chest felt tight. I stepped forward, picked up the charger first, then the condom box. I turned them over in my hands, like maybe some part of them would explain themselves if I looked close enough. They didn't. I walked across the hall, opened the bottom drawer of my desk, and placed both items inside. I closed it softly, no slam, no drama, just a click. Then I washed my hands and made breakfast. Steel-cut oats, cinnamon, a splash of almond milk the way Marian liked it. I made 2 mugs of coffee, black for me, cream and sugar for her, and set the table like it was any other morning. I heard her footsteps before I saw her. She came around the corner in high-waisted leggings and a loose tank top, hair tied up in a messy bun. She looked fresh, not post-party groggy or hungover. Almost too fresh. Her skin was dewy, like she just rinsed off a workout or a night she didn't want to admit to. Her face lit up when she saw me. "Jaden," she said, walking over to kiss me. "You're home early." "Yeah," I replied, keeping my voice light, wrapped up ahead of schedule. She leaned in, kissed my cheek. Too quick. I noticed she didn't make direct eye contact afterward. She walked over to the sink, poured herself water, then leaned on the counter like nothing was wrong. "I was going to clean up this morning," she said casually, glancing in the direction of the bedroom. "Taylor stayed over Friday night. You remember Taylor, right? Had that disaster Tinder date with the guy who brought his mom?" She laughed. "I didn't. She crashed here, poor thing. Think she left her charger. A beat. And we were, joking about some of my old stuff in the drawer. I was gonna toss it. Sorry if it weirded you out." She said it so smoothly, like it had just occurred to her, like she just now remembered this incredibly convenient explanation. I stirred my coffee and nodded. "Taylor, huh?" "Yeah. She was a mess," Marian said, laughing again. "You know how she gets. Drama follows her." She pivoted quickly. Asked about my flight, the weather in Chicago, if I remembered to pick up dry cleaning before I left. I watched how sk'lfully she redirected the conversation. How she leaned into that light, breezy tone like nothing had shifted. But I saw the glance toward the bedroom. I saw the flicker of panic, expertly buried under a layer of fake cheer. She was performing for me or maybe for herself. Either way, I recognized it. And I said nothing. Because what do you say to someone when you know they're lying, but you don't have the full story? I ate my breakfast. She scrolled through her phone between bites. Her screen tilted away from me. She laughed once. A hollow little chuckle like she was reading something funny. Probably texted someone that I was home early. And I just kept chewing. My mind ran through 1,000 little details. Had I told her what time I was coming back? Had she expected me later? Why had those things been out in the open? Was she getting reckless? Or did she want me to see them? No, that didn't make sense. If she wanted to provoke something, she would have acted different. No, this was sloppiness. This was someone getting too comfortable. I thought about Taylor. I barely knew her, honestly. I'd met her twice. Once at Marianne's birthday dinner, once at a wine tasting. She didn't strike me as someone who left chargers behind and rummaged through bedside drawers. Even if she had, why condoms? Why that charger on my side of the bed? It didn't line up. Still, I said nothing. Not because I was afraid of the truth. I think in that moment I already knew the truth. But I needed more. I needed to see how this would play out, how she would continue to lie to me, or if she'd trip over the story she just invented. She talked about going to a new yoga studio, asked if I'd be up for dinner with her parents next weekend, mentioned that her friend Jordan had gotten engaged. All surface-level stuff. Distracting, misdirecting, and I played along. I smiled when I was supposed to, laughed in the right spots, responded just enough to seem present. But I wasn't. Inside, something in me cracked. Not like a dramatic break. More like a slow, quiet splintering. A hairline fracture in the foundation of everything I thought I knew about us. The room looked the same. The same coffee mugs, the same fridge magnets, the same dog-eared cookbook open to the same page it had been on since April. But everything felt off, like I was looking at a replica of my life. A perfect imitation with one vital flaw. Her. The Marian sitting across from me that morning wasn't a stranger. Exactly. But she wasn't the woman I thought I'd wake up next to for the rest of my life. Either. She'd rehearsed that story. You don't improvise that cleanly. You don't stammer for half a second and then deliver a polished monologue unless you've had practice. Unless you've run that line before. And if she had practiced it, who else had she said it to? The rest of the morning passed in a haze. She left for a workout, or said she was, and I stayed behind, supposedly to catch up on emails. The door closed behind her, and I sat in the kitchen, staring at the empty chair across from mine. The charger, the condoms, the lie. It was too much, too clean, too obvious, and that's what scared me the most. Not that I'd found a clue, but that she didn't even try to hide it well. After Marian left for her so-called workout, I didn't move. I just sat there, alone in the kitchen, the coffee in my mug gone cold. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than usual, almost like the walls themselves knew something was wrong. Or maybe I was just noticing what had been wrong for a long time. It's funny how things don't seem suspicious until you're looking backward with a different lens. The little inconsistencies, the shifts in routine, the convenient excuses, they all seem harmless when you trust someone. But trust isn't some unshakable thing. It's more like glass. Once you see a crack, you can't stop seeing it. I opened my phone and scrolled through old photos of us. At first, I was just trying to distract myself, to pretend things were still normal. But each picture pulled me further into a place I hadn't wanted to go. I started noticing things, expressions, body language. Her smile in certain photos didn't quite reach her eyes. My arm around her always looked tighter than hers around me. I had wanted so badly to believe in us that I ignored the way her warmth had started to fade. And then I remembered specific moments, things I had filed away as nothing. Things I had wanted to believe were nothing. There was the time she stayed overnight at her company's retreat in Malibu and came home with the scent of unfamiliar cologne clinging to her coat. I made a joke about it, half serious, half testing the waters. She laughed it off and claimed it was from sharing a cab with some coworker. It's not like I can control what people wear, she said, rolling her eyes. I let it go. Why wouldn't I? It sounded reasonable enough. But now it didn't. Then there was the male voice I heard once while she was in the shower. Loud enough that I thought someone had come in. When I walked past the bathroom, her phone was on speaker on the bathroom counter, still lit up. The call ended the moment I glanced in. Just the neighbor, she said without missing a beat. He but dialed me and I picked up. She laughed like it was absurd, and I played along even though my gut twisted at the time. I remembered how she started working late more often. Sometimes she'd call and say something came up, a meeting ran long, or she was catching up on a project. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. So I did. Even the way she guarded her phone had changed over time. First, we were open. No passcodes, no secrets. We shared playlists, used each other's phones without thinking twice. But slowly, she started putting her face down on the table. Started taking calls in the bedroom with the door closed. Said it was work stuff, or that she didn't want to be rude if it was a friend venting. She even once forgot her phone at home, and within 5 minutes of her leaving, it buzzed with a message from a contact labeled unknown. Just that one word, unknown. I stared at it for 10 minutes trying to justify not opening it. But I didn't. I told myself I wasn't the kind of guy who snooped. Now I wish I had. There was that weird day, too, when she forgot the password to her personal email. She'd used the same one for years, but when I asked her to forward me a receipt from a shared purchase, she suddenly couldn't log in. Claimed she had been locked out and was trying to reset it. I remember thinking it was odd, but I didn't push. I figured maybe it was just a glitch. But the way she fumbled through the explanation, how defensive she got, that should have been my first real clue. Looking back, I think the signs were always there. Not glaring, not obvious, just subtle shifts. Patterns that didn't feel like patterns until they were laid side by side. She'd started wearing new perfume about 6 months ago. Nothing wrong with that, right? Except she didn't tell me. One day, she just smelled different. When I noticed, she told me it was a sample from a coworker. Said she wasn't sure she liked it, but she kept wearing it. Eventually, it just became her new scent. It wasn't the smell itself that bothered me. It was that I wasn't included in the decision. Like I wasn't part of that world anymore. Even our weekends started to change. We used to spend Saturdays together. Grocery shopping, coffee shop runs, just walking around the park. That slowed down. She'd suddenly remember errands she had to run, or she'd want to spend time catching up with friends I didn't know well, people from work, or an old friend from college passing through town. I rarely asked questions. I didn't want to be controlling. I told myself it was healthy to give each other space. But she was always out when I wasn't home, always dressed up, always smiling when she left, quiet when she returned. I thought I was being a supportive partner. Thought giving her space made me a good man. Now I wonder if I just gave her freedom to drift away. The realization hit slowly. Not like a gut punch, but like drowning. Like being pulled under 1 inch at a time until the water is at your mouth. And all you can do is look up and remember how easy it was to breathe before. I stood up and walked into the bedroom again. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The sheets were clean. The closet door slightly ajar. Her side of the bed still warm from earlier. I opened my drawer and looked at the items again. The charger. Still there. Still foreign. I picked it up and stared at it. Frayed at the tip, coiled like it had been in a gym bag. I pressed my thumb against the metal plug. It was still slightly warm. Then the condom box. Not a brand we'd ever used. 3 missing from the pack. The foil of the next one torn like someone had rushed to open it. I'd always been careful about what we used. We hadn't touched a condom in almost a year. We didn't need to. The question spiraled. When? Where? Who? But even as my mind twisted through possibilities, I felt this cold clarity settling in. This didn't start yesterday, or last week. It had been building. Quietly, carefully. She hadn't made a mistake. Not in the way people forget things or mess up under pressure. This wasn't a slip. It was a pattern. A strategy. A series of rehearsed exits and well-timed lies. I sat down on the edge of the bed and stared at our framed photo on the nightstand. Cancun 2 years ago. Wind in our faces. Sun in our eyes. Smiles that felt real at the time. Maybe they were. But maybe I was just the only one smiling for the camera. What hit me hardest wasn't even the idea that she'd been with someone else. It was that I'd been reduced to background noise in her life. Placeholder. A default setting she didn't bother to update. And maybe that was what hurt the most. Not that she had changed, but that I had stayed the same while she quietly outgrew the version of us I had fought to preserve. She hadn't just cheated. She'd left me behind a long time ago. I just hadn't noticed. Until now. I didn't say anything to Marianne the next morning. I didn't need to. The silence between us had become its own kind of conversation. She acted normal, too normal. Made smoothies, hummed a song while scrolling through her phone. Asked if I wanted to do something low-key for the weekend. I nodded, agreed, pretended I was still in it. But something had shifted. For me, at least. I spent most of the day working, but I barely registered the screen in front of me. My mind kept looping back to the drawer, the charger, the box, her face when she lied. It wasn't guilt I saw in her, it was calculation. She wasn't panicked. She was prepared. That night, she brought up something unexpected. "My dad's birthday is this weekend," she said casually, while drying dishes. "They're doing dinner at the beach house. Just family and a few friends. You should come." I looked at her, not even trying to hide my surprise. "You want me there?" She smiled, not wide, not forced. Just enough to sell it. "Of course. You've never been. I think he'd like to see you again." The last time I saw her parents, they barely made eye contact with me. Her mother was polite in that overly distant way, like she was mentally editing every sentence. Her father shook my hand like it was a formality. They always treated me like I was the temporary boyfriend she hadn't outgrown yet. Never mind that we were approaching 3 years together. So yeah, the invitation felt strange, but I said yes, because if she was going to invite me into her world, I was going to pay attention to everything. We drove out Saturday afternoon, her playlist humming through the speakers. She was chatty, talking about work, her mom's obsession with white wine, her brother's new girlfriend. I responded where I had to, nodded, laughed when it made sense. But most of the time I just watched her hands on the steering wheel, her nails freshly done. The new ring she'd started wearing on her right middle finger, one I'd never seen before. The beach house was as upscale as I expected. Perched on a cliff overlooking the water, all glass and steel and minimalism. Inside, it smelled like citrus candles and clean surfaces. No clutter, no warmth. Like a magazine you weren't allowed to touch. Her parents greeted us at the door. Her father was in a linen shirt, drink already in hand. Her mother kissed Marianne twice on each cheek, then looked me over with the kind of expression people usually reserve for TSA agents. But I smiled and played my part. Dinner was on the terrace. Long table, dim lighting, everything curated like an Instagram reel. Wine was poured, and everyone talked over one another in bursts of laughter and half-finished stories. I kept quiet, observing. Then, somewhere between the second glass of wine and the grilled sea bass, they switched to Spanish. Now, Marianne and I had always spoken in English. Her Spanish came out only during phone calls with her family or in jokes with her coworkers. She never used it with me, never bothered to ask if I understood it. Which made sense because she didn't know I did. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I studied Spanish in college. Minored in it, actually. And about 6 months ago, I started brushing up through private lessons, mostly to keep my brain sharp. I never told her. It never came up. But that night, it became the most important secret I had. At first, the conversation was harmless. Her father complained about taxes. Her brother talked about surfing. But then it shifted. The volume lowered. The tone changed. Her mother leaned toward her father and said, "He's still working that same job, isn't he? What does he even make?" Her father smirked. Not enough for someone like her. I stared down at my wine glass. Her mother's voice. She deserves someone more ambitious. Someone who can take care of her. "She knows that," he replied. "She's just keeping her options open." Then Marianne laughed softly, but audibly. "She likes him enough," her brother chimed in. "For now." "For now," her father repeated, raising his glass. "Until someone better comes along." They all laughed, including her. I didn't move, didn't blink, just let it wash over me. Their voices, their laughter, their complete certainty that I didn't understand a word. Marian looked at me once during that exchange, briefly, like checking to see if I was still the clueless fool at the far end of the table. I met her gaze and smiled. A little too long. A little too still. I didn't say a word. When dessert came, flan with fresh mango, I stood up slowly, lifted my glass, and cleared my throat. "To the family," I said in perfect practice Spanish. "Thank you for the invitation. The meal was lovely. The view was beautiful. And the company. Enlightening." Silence. Her father's mouth parted slightly, mid-chew. Her mother froze, eyes darting to Marianne. Her brother stared like I just turned into someone else. And Marianne, her eyes widened just enough to betray her. Just enough to let me see the panic underneath. I held the moment, then nodded politely and set my glass down. And I left. I didn't storm out. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to, because I had heard everything. And they knew I had. I walked down the hill in the dark, the sound of waves crashing below. I could still feel their voices echoing in my ears. Not just what they said, but how comfortable they were saying it. Like I wasn't real. Like I didn't matter. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. I got in the car and sat for a long time, hands on the wheel, staring out at the stretch of coastal highway ahead of me. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt clear. More clear than I had in months. I started the engine and drove home. No calls. No texts. Just the road, the dark, and the cold certainty that whatever illusion I had been living in was officially over. I didn't answer my phone that night. Not when it rang once. Not when it rang 5 times. Not when it rang 17. By the time I pulled into the driveway and stepped into the quiet of my apartment, Marian had left me 6 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and 1 long text that read like a speech written in panic. She wasn't home yet. Maybe she thought I'd come back after cooling off, or maybe she was still back at the beach house trying to explain what had just happened. Either way, I wasn't interested. I took a shower, changed into sweats, and sat on the couch in the dark with the TV on mute. My phone lit up again. Another call, this time from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then the texts started coming one after another. "Jaden, please call me. I didn't mean for it to come out like that. They didn't mean what they said. They don't know you. You blindsided me. Why didn't you ever tell me you spoke Spanish?" That one made me laugh. A sharp, humorless sound. That was what she was upset about? I let the phone fall face down on the coffee table and stared at the ceiling. I was waiting for a feeling that never came. Anger, sadness, confusion. Instead, I just felt confirmation that everything I suspected, everything I feared, was now undeniably, painfully real. She texted again. "Can we talk? Just you and me. Please. Talk." That was her solution. Conversation. As if words would fix what I'd heard with my own ears. As if some well-placed apology or teary confession could rewind that dinner. The next morning, I woke up to more of the same. 15 new messages. 1 long voicemail where she cried through most of it and tried, somehow, to blame it all on miscommunication. She said her family didn't mean anything by it, that they were just drinking and talking nonsense. But what stuck with me wasn't her crying. It was the part where she slipped and said, "You shouldn't have listened." Not, "They shouldn't have said those things." Not, "I'm sorry for what I said." Just, "You shouldn't have listened." Like I was the one who broke something. Like my fluency in her native language was the true betrayal. That's when it really hit me. She wasn't sorry for what she said. She was sorry she got caught saying it. The messages kept coming in waves throughout the day. Guilt, blame, pleading. Her tone changed every few hours, as if trying different tactics might wear me down. One moment she'd say she didn't mean it, that she was just playing along with their jokes. The next she'd accuse me of being dishonest, of hiding who I was by never telling her I understood Spanish. That part almost impressed me. How quickly she flipped the script. Suddenly, I was the liar. That afternoon, I muted the thread. Not out of spite. I just didn't want to keep watching her shift shapes in real time. By evening, she showed up at the apartment. I heard the knock before I saw her. 2 short taps. Then silence. I opened the door, just enough to see her face. Her eyes were red, makeup gone, sweatshirt too big. She looked like someone trying to look broken. "Jaden," she said softly. "Please." I didn't answer. She stepped forward slightly. "I know I messed up. I know what you heard sounded awful, but you weren't supposed to hear that. It was a private moment. They don't really think that about you. My dad, he's just old-fashioned. My mom doesn't know what she's talking about. And I—" "Stop," I said. She froze. "I heard everything, Marianne, and I understood all of it. Not just the words, the tone, the laughter, the ease." She swallowed hard. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded." "Yes, you did," I said. A long silence hung between us. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me you speak Spanish?" I let out a breath and looked her dead in the eye. "Because I never imagined you'd say something that required a translation." She looked like she wanted to cry again. I didn't care. "I didn't cheat on you," she said suddenly. "If that's what this is about. You think I'm seeing someone? I'm not, I swear." I raised an eyebrow. That wasn't a denial. That was a deflection. "No, it's not. I'm telling you the truth." I shook my head. "It's not about what you did. It's about who you are. And how you really see me." "I don't," she said, her voice climbing. "I don't see you that way. I was trying to make them comfortable. It was a joke. I didn't mean any of it. I didn't know you could understand." I finished for her. "Right? You didn't know I was listening, so it felt safe to say what you really thought." She pressed her lips together and looked away. For the first time, she seemed truly unsure of what to say next. "I want to explain," she whispered. I nodded slowly. "I know, but I don't think I want to hear it." That's when the tears came for real. Not performative. Just quiet sobs, shoulders shaking as she stood on the welcome mat in front of the door we used to come home through together. "I didn't think you'd walk out like that," she said between breaths. "I didn't think you'd leave." "Then you don't know me," I replied. She looked up, eyes wide. "So what now?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the door. I just said, "Now I take back my silence." And then I closed the door, locked it, walked away. Inside, my hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't flooded with doubt. I felt calm, because that dinner didn't just expose what she thought of me. It reminded me of what I thought of myself. And I deserved more than someone who only respected me when they believed I couldn't hear them. I didn't sleep much that night, but it wasn't because of anxiety or regret. It was just stillness, like the calm that follows a storm. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator from down the hall. It was one of the first nights in a long time where I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for something. There was no more pretending, no more guessing games. I knew what I needed to do. Marian didn't try knocking again, at least not that night. But in the morning, I heard her car pull up out front. She didn't text first, didn't call, just showed up. It was around 8 a.m. I was standing at the stove, frying eggs and sipping coffee, when I saw her silhouette through the frosted glass of the front door. She stood there for a few seconds before knocking. Just 2 soft taps, almost identical to the ones from the night before. I didn't answer immediately. I just watched her through the peephole. Her hair was down this time, brushed out, not messy like last night. She wore jeans and a plain black t-shirt, the kind she used to borrow from me before it started feeling performative. Her arms were crossed like she was holding herself together. I opened the door, but only halfway. Her eyes searched my face instantly. "Jaden," she breathed, like my name itself was a plea. "Can we talk? I don't think there's much to say." She blinked like she hadn't expected that. "You won't even hear me out?" "I heard you. Dinner. In 2 languages." Her jaw tightened. "You're being cold." "No," I said. "I'm being clear." She stepped forward, but I didn't move. The door stayed exactly where it was, cracked open just enough to show I was still in control of the threshold. She wasn't getting past me. "You're really just going to shut me out like this?" she asked, her voice climbing. Over one dinner? I almost laughed. It wasn't one dinner, Marianne. It was a lens, and through it I saw the whole picture. She exhaled sharply, frustration overtaking the desperation. So you're not even going to let me explain my side? You explained it already, I said. With every word you didn't think I could understand. That wasn't fair, she snapped. You set me up. I tilted my head. I set you up? Yes, she said, exasperated. You never told me you speak Spanish. You never gave me a heads up. You let me walk into that conversation blind. You mean honest? I cut in. I let you be honest. She froze. You weren't acting, Marianne. You were revealing. Her mouth opened, then closed again, like she didn't know what to say unless she was playing defense. Look, she tried again. My parents don't get to decide who I'm with, and yes, they can be judgmental, and yes, I laughed when I shouldn't have. But that doesn't mean I agree with them. I nodded slowly. But you didn't disagree with them either. I was just trying to keep the peace. By betraying me? She flinched. It wasn't betrayal. No? I asked. Then what would you call mocking your partner behind his back? Minimizing him in front of people who already don't respect him, and laughing along like he's just a pit stop on your way to someone more impressive? That's not fair. Maybe not, I said. But it's accurate. Her voice dropped again, softer this time. Jayden, I love you. I stared at her, deadpan. No, you love the version of me that doesn't understand. You love the silence, the safety of secrecy. You love being able to say what you want without consequence. That's not true. Yes, it is, I said, firmer now. You love having the upper hand. You love being the one who knows more, controls more, hides more. But the second I see you clearly, suddenly I'm cold. I'm punishing. I'm the villain. Her lip quivered. This doesn't have to be the end. It already is. We stood there in silence. The door between us felt heavier than it was. She glanced past me, like maybe she'd find a reason to push her way in. But she didn't try. I thought we were stronger than this, she whispered. We were. I was. A tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. I'm not letting you in, I said gently. Not just the apartment. My life. She nodded slowly, a small, bitter nod. The kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost control. I don't even know who you are right now, she said. That's funny, I replied. Because for the first time I do. She stood there for a second longer, then stepped back, slowly, like she wanted me to stop her, like she was daring me to reach out and pull her inside. I didn't move. I just closed the door, didn't slam it, didn't lock it in her face, just closed it. A soft, final sound. And then I stood there on the other side, hand still on the knob, listening to the quiet, waiting to see if she'd knock again. She didn't. I watched through the peephole as she turned, wiped her face, and walked back to her car. She sat inside for a few minutes before driving off. When I heard her engine fade into the distance, I finally stepped back and exhaled. Not because I was angry, because I was done. There's a certain power in choosing not to explain yourself, in not inviting chaos back in for the sake of closure. I didn't need to hear her version. I already had it, polished, defensive, well-practiced. And I was done collecting her rehearsals. I made a cup of coffee, sat at the window, and watched the street slowly return to quiet. It was the same street I'd walked with her dozens of times. The same one where we used to joke about buying a dog, getting matching bikes, maybe someday moving to a house with a porch. That version of us had been gone for a while. She just didn't know I'd noticed. The rest of the day was quiet. A strange, full kind of quiet. Not emptiness, but peace. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. If she texted, it would go unread. If she called, it would ring once and fade. The door stayed closed. Not because I hated her, but because I finally loved myself enough to keep it that way.